All right, guys, let's get started then tonight. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the recruiting meeting for Central and North. My name is Danielle Bay. I'm the recruiting coordinator for West and Central, and I also do player development. You'll see some stuff from me in Sports Board, so I'll be updating some of that stuff in there so you guys have more resources. And I do player development mainly for our Central and West teams. So let's get started on some more introductions because we have some more people here. So down here we have some regional managers. The man that you see, it'll be on your left-hand side, is Bill Brandt. He's our Central Regional Manager. Chris is under him, kind of to the right. He's our Shore and Ocean Regional Manager. You have me in the middle there, West, obviously. You have Jen, who is not here tonight. She does North Middle School. You have Kat, who is here tonight. Kat, do you want to raise your hand and say hi? She does our North High School, so you guys should know her pretty well by now. Kelly Knapp does our Shore, Ocean, and United. Lori is on here. Do you want to raise your hand and say hi? She's our founder and director of T3. And then we also have Mike Drab, who does our Cobra branch. For our recruiting coordinators, you have myself. I just introduced myself, so Central and West for me. You have Caitlin. Caitlin's going to be speaking tonight as well. She's down here. She does T3 North. And then you have Kelly Knapp, who does our Ocean and Shore. For player development, we have Julia. You guys should know her pretty well as well now. She does Cobra and North. For player development for West and Central, that's me. And then Kelly Knapp also does United Shore High School and Ocean High School. Athlete types. You guys have received emails on this already. What this is it gives you kind of what your mental game is for lacrosse. So it helps you kind of navigate that and get better at some of your weaknesses mentally on the field. So we sent an email out. The first thing that you were supposed to do was take a questionnaire. It's about 25 to 35 minutes. It gives you some in-depth questions about yourself. Just take your time. It's not a timed test. Usually takes 25 to 35 minutes is what I said, so it might take you longer and that's okay. But feel free to take your time through that and answer those questions as truthfully as possible. So you'll learn about your specific mental game and what that means to you, and it'll give you a big outline on that. From there, there's also something in there called a mental gym. So the mental gym is there to help you with your weaknesses and your strengths. So say, for instance, one of your weaknesses is confidence. It'll give you some activities that you can do in there to boost your confidence, to help you on the field and off the field, just trying to gain more confidence in general. Okay, so that's just one of the things that it helps you with in the mental gym. There are a plethora of different activities in there that you can do. And I'm actually going to start giving out homework for that as soon as fall ball is over. So if you haven't done your athlete type questionnaire, I highly suggest you get on there and do that ASAP. We're also going to start with some group activities at practices, and that might start in the summertime. It just makes you understand better that your athlete type is actually needed for your team. So there's 8 different athlete types, and you can go through and actually find out that you're needed to win a game. You're needed to win that championship game, stuff like that. So the group activities will come in the summertime then. For strength and conditioning, we have 6 different partnerships and a little bit more because we do have Parisi in 2 different locations as of right now. So we do have different strength and conditioning partnerships. There should be a lot up here in the north for you guys, so hopefully one is near you that you can go to. If you haven't signed up for strength and conditioning yet, I also highly suggest that you get onto that. There's only 2 more sessions left that you can join. One's in November, December, the other one's in December, January, and a little into February as well. So make sure you get on that and sign up before those classes fill up. So I'd like to introduce Meg McCrae, who's a 2019 T3 grad, and she's a Duquesne commit. So come on up and you can tell us a little bit about your process. You can do it.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Meg McCrae. I go to Ridge High School. I'm a senior. I committed to Duquesne University September 3rd last fall. For a while before the new rule, I was talking to coaches like everyone before me had, but then halfway through my process, I was talking to a school, Duquesne, and I was really interested in that school. And I knew I wanted to commit there, but I wanted to hold out, see if anyone else was interested in me. Just get a few more final answers from some coaches before I finally made my decision. And right before I made my decision, a rule change went in, and I had to wait a few months before I could commit. But the rule change actually taught me a lot, and it will help you guys to know what about the rule change. So before the rule change, is it still the same thing where coaches can't talk? Okay, so coaches can't talk to you at all, and they couldn't talk to me before. Caitlin can set up a call for you with the coaches, but the coaches have to reach out to her. They can't reach out to you yourself. They'll have to contact Caitlin. Caitlin will contact you, and then you can either respond to Caitlin or send the coach an email and say this is when I'm free, or I'm gonna be at these tournaments. It's good to let the coaches know your schedule, what tournaments you'll be attending, how you're doing in. Are they all in high school? How you're doing in your high school seasons, and it's good to really even though they can't respond to you, it's good to keep a connection with them in case when September 1st does come around, they are interested in you and are ready to start the conversation right then. So a lot of things that helped in my process that weren't just going to tournaments and having coaches watch me at tournaments was the emails. Those were a big part of it. Are they allowed phone calls? No, never mind. And okay. So showcases that are separate from the tournaments are a really big part of it. Anytime you can get coaches to see you, watch your film, that's a really big part of it, just so they know who you are as a player and what your strong parts are. And it's even good if they watch if you have a film of a whole game and it's a good game that you played in, it's good to send that whole game, because then they can see not only your good parts but sometimes your bad parts as well. They want to know all of you rather than just your highlights. And it also helps if I lost my train of thought. Oh well. So Duquesne, they saw me at a tournament and they reached out by email to Fitz. And then they told me, we're really interested in this girl. Where is she in her process? It's really good to know where you stand in your process at all times. Your process is going to change a million times. I had a list of schools in the beginning. Not one school was on the same list in the end. So I constantly kept a list of 10 to 12 schools just to email and make sure they were watching me at all times, just to know I'm in a good point in my process to know where I am. That didn't make sense. So once they reached out to Fitz, they asked me to come out to the campus. Are they allowed to do that? Never mind. But it's good to visit campuses. Even without lacrosse, all that aside, it's good to go to the campus and make sure the school you're looking at is a school you want to go to, not just for lacrosse, for academics, for living on campus, for the people, the environment. Do you want a city? Do you want out in the middle of nowhere? Do you want just a school that's that campus, or do you want to be around other campuses? My school is in downtown Pittsburgh, and I love it. I love the city. So that was a big part of it, was looking in cities. So it's a good thing also. I know it's not crazy with the young ones, but start thinking about possible majors. What do you want to do with your life? It's not fun, but yeah. I am planning to major in physical therapy at Duquesne, and they have a pretty good program there, so hopefully I get in. It's to be determined. So big things to remember are to keep emailing, like don't email too much. Like that's a important part, but letting them know your schedule, checking in every once in a while to make sure they still are, like that way they know like this girl's interested in me as well as I want to know more about her. And yeah, just keeping a list, and your list can vary also. It doesn't have to just be D1 schools. So Duquesne is a D1 school, and I was looking mainly D1, but I also had a few D3 options I was looking at, because there's so many schools out there that there's always going to be a home for you. So look D1, look D2, look D3, find whatever fits for you. There is a school out there for you. So D3, it doesn't affect. So D3s, you can talk to them, but D1s, you can't talk to them. And D2, and D2. So I wish you all luck, and hope you all end up at the schools you really want to, doing what you love.
Thanks, Meg. Practice makes perfect. See? Practice makes perfect. So I'm Caitlin. The next part we're going to cover is the recruiting road. As Meg talked about, she happened to be one that was about to commit on a Thursday, and then they put the rule in place on Wednesday. So then Meg had to wait about 6 months to make a decision. So she kind of ended up in the same boat that you're all in, where coaches can't talk to you anymore. And it's basically, how do I manage this road through the recruiting process with the rules that are in place today? The big things to think about, though, is that T3, like Meg mentioned, showcases and camps and clinics. T3 is going to provide you guys exposure, gaining knowledge, the tools to navigate the recruiting process. We are not sports agents. We will talk to coaches on your behalf. We will talk to you and pass along any information that we hear, but we're not Jerry Maguire. We're not going to be wheeling and dealing. It does take a lot of work on the individual part to get this process done. Another thing to remember is that, elite team fees guarantee player development and practices, but they don't guarantee scholarship money. That comes from the hard work of the athlete. Almost every single one of our players in the 2018 class ended up going on to play college lacrosse. I think the number was like 94%. Which is ridiculous when you think about it. We had entire black teams committed 100% Division I, where one or two kids decided that they wanted to go to a larger school rather than what they were attending. But we don't guarantee a college scholarship. We're going to get you the exposure that you need. And like Meg said, there's going to be a place for everybody. It might not everybody end up at UNC. Don't invest in T3 with the mindset of breaking even with an athletic scholarship. Like we said, it's all about finding that right fit for you. And then committing to T3 is a year-round commitment to work hard on your game and improve as an individual and as a team, because that's what you're here for. You're not just here to, show up and play in games. You're here to improve and work on your game. Player image. There's a lot of players here tonight. Just make sure that you guys pass this along. If you have your Instagram accounts or your Twitter accounts or your Snapchats, on unlocked, coaches are able to stalk you down. It was a big part of our process where we would look into our kids' accounts and see what they're posting. You want to basically go with the mindset that you want to post what you would want your grandma to see, and make sure that it's clean and make sure that's appropriate. Families and players are always being watched on and off the field. If you go anywhere with a T3 sweatshirt on or a jersey and you're going to go get dinner, coaches can identify you. They might not have a hat on anymore, but they'll recognize the T3 name just because they understand and respect who we are. And then also just keep in mind, both parent and player, the online presence can affect the recruiting process, so make sure to keep it clean. We decided that we were going to go ahead and show you guys what we mean. If you looked at these the top picture right here, What's your first impression of that picture? What's going on in the background? So Kat and Jen might be having a grand old time taking a selfie together, but Julia and I are in the background doing not so great things. In this one, we're deciding to read books. So which one of those would be the appropriate picture to post? The other thing is the red Solo cups. You know, you might have them at a backyard barbecue, but for the most part, everyone understands the notion of what's in them. We want to make sure that as innocent as the picture is with Cabo down on the bottom, or with Kat and Jen hanging out in Lori's kitchen, that we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing and posting the right images. You know, things can be taken out of context, and at the next level, that could affect your process. There are coaches that do, you know, that actually have kicked kids off teams because of what images they're posting on the internet. So make sure that we keep it as clean as possible. Yeah, Duquesne has kicked kids off. High Point's kicked kids off. It's not so nice.
We just got a new coach, and she looked up all our Instagrams just to make sure, and she emailed all of us and like told specific people like these things need to be taken down, like you can't be showing certain images or certain political views. Like you can share your views, but like extremes are not the best thing to show online. Also, like they showed like drinks not a thing to have. Even some things to watch are like if you're on the beach in the summer, like bikini pics are sometimes not even like good things to post either. So just like be mindful when you're posting, like this is not a thing I want my coach to see. Because also if you follow a school, they can follow you back, and once they follow you back, they can see everything.
Basically, whatever goes on the internet never goes away. So just make sure to remind your kids that. The other thing is,
my daughter went to High Point, and there were two players actually removed from the team because of their Instagram accounts, and it actually was one of the Finsta accounts that you guys probably know about that I didn't really know that much about. So they find these things, and if it's a serious, you know, disrespect to the team mentality, they're gone. So it's a very serious thing. You can't take this lightly, and you'd be surprised how most of the college coach community is young, and they know, but they're not maybe like me as a mom that didn't know as much. They know what you guys are doing. They know how to track you down from 16 different angles. They'll flush it out so they can figure out what kind of person you are. So just make sure you're real careful.
the next thing is parent image. You know, it's pretty easy to identify who parents belong to their, like which children belong to which parents on the sidelines. The big difference between the two images is the parents on the sidelines on the left are just hanging out, they're cheering, they're watching their teams play. The one on the right is from my favorite movie. He's picking up a traffic cone and yelling at the officials and yelling at the players. That's super easy to identify whose parent that is, and that actually could help cross your child off somebody's list based on your behavior. We always say that parents cheer on their kids' teams and take pictures. Let the coaches coach, let the officials officiate, and let the kids play. Basically, we want you guys to create a positive environment for both the parents, the players, the opponent, the officials. If we know that you guys are all pretty great people, just make sure that we relay that on each of the fields. And then the September 1st rule that Meg touched on a little bit. College coaches can't hold any recruiting conversations, any recruiting meetings, any visits prior to September 1st of junior year. So Meg mentioned getting out and seeing schools. You should go out and see the schools on your own. It's just the difference is you can't contact the coach and say, I'd like to set up a meeting before that. This is also only at the Division I level. College coaches can contact us meaning T3, myself, Danielle Bay, Lori, anyone else, saying that, we have Meg on a list of possible recruits. They can't really tell us anymore what they like about her, what they want her to improve on. It's just, we like Meg, she's on a list of our prospects. They can't comment on anything else other than that. It's quote unquote general interest. On or after September 1st, this year was a more true year to what to actually expect. So our 2020s kind of treated it like Midnight Madness. There were people FaceTiming, there were people texting, there were people emailing, calling, sending up smoke signals at 12:01 a.m., basically through 4 a.m. because of the West Coast schools, and then picking it back up again at 6 a.m., and then again at noon, and then again at 6 p.m. So coaches were calling, they were trying to get an idea of where you were. They were either offering up pending offers, pending visits. A couple kids ended up with offers just because they had been to the campuses before. We may or may not be advised of the calls that are coming towards you on September 1st, or possible calls coming at you on September 1st. If we do hear of any, we will pass the information along to obviously to the 2021s this year. And then another important date other than September 1st is July 1st. So July 1st, before junior year, the service academies, the Division I service academies, are allowed to call and text players directly. So that's Army and Navy at the Division I level. And then July 1st, after junior year, is when the NESCAC schools, so that's Conn College, Hamilton, Bowdoin, Amherst, Bates, Trinity, Colby, Williams, Wesleyan, Middlebury, and Tufts, they are all allowed to offer athletes after July 1st. Or on July 1st, I believe at noon. Those schools are allowed to express interest. They are allowed to tell you what you like, what they don't like, but they're not allowed to extend any offer of, come play for me prior to that July 1st date. Other Division IIIs and other Division IIs are allowed to offer you prior to that. So these guys have to slow it down. Some schools stick to their guidelines. Other high academic D3s move a little quicker, like Gettysburg, like Franklin and Marshall. Those higher level Division IIIs might offer kids after the fall. Those kids meaning the 2020s this year. And then the recruiting calendar. We always go over this just because people always ask, why do we play when we do? We attend tournaments the second weekend in June through July 31st because that's when the college coaches are allowed to recruit. It's not that we decided that we want to recruit in the dead of the heat of the summer or in the cold of November, because those are the 3 weekends before Thanksgiving that they're allowed out and they're allowed to see you guys. There are other times where they can see you at camps and clinics. Most of the time you won't really see anything outside these legal windows. And then the difference in the 3 divisions. This is a slide that'll be up on the website. I believe it's actually up right now on the elite only pages, but it just outlines the difference between divisions 1, 2, and 3. Division 1 being where lacrosse basically is the all-consuming activity in your life. Lacrosse and school are basically the only 2 things that students end up actually doing at school. If you look at this, for about 40 hours a week are dedicated to just practice, conditioning, film review, injury treatment, meeting with coaches, and then you have 70 hours for the rest of the week doing whatever else you want to do. But out of a week, that's not that much time. Some kids, if you're hurt, those hour totals go up. If you're not injured, then you have a little bit more free time. But usually Division I is most of your life is consumed by lacrosse. Division II is kind of the happy medium where you do have a little bit more of a balance, but it still is a heavy fall season for some of the more competitive Division IIs, and a full spring season as well. You might be playing games more regionally, but still similar athletic commitment, but you might have a little bit more time for extracurriculars, meaning jobs or volunteer hours or anything else that's important to you, but it's a similar time commitment if you look at the bubble. Division III is where you start to see the lesson, the time lesson. It's more of a balance. Some Division IIIs can't have a fall season, meaning the NESCACs cannot have a fall season at all. It's all organized captain's practice. Some might have a 3 or 4 week condensed fall season and then kind of give you guys off for the winter and just have strength and conditioning. Or you might, just have captains or work on your own and then go into your fall season, which which gives you the opportunity to study abroad. It gives you the opportunity to join sororities, clubs, have a heavy science course load major or anything with a lot of labs. We do have kids that do play Division I lacrosse that are heavy science majors, but some that are a little bit more concerned will end up going the Division III route, and that's where it's all about finding the balance, what works best for you. And then here's just a quick glimpse of the timeline. So we mentioned it before. The 2020s have been watched since their freshman summer. Schools are looking to round out their Division I schools are looking to round out their class this winter. If there's no interest after September 1st, you're probably on a Division II or III track. The 2021s, the top end of the freshman class, or that class was watched at the end of the summer. Most schools are going to start watching early fall. And then if you receive interest after this fall or towards the middle of the summer, you're probably on a Division I track. And then the 2022s, I don't think there's many of you in the room, but a lot of schools will start to watch you towards the end of the summer. You might see a few scattered around this fall, but for the most part, it's just getting those early lists to invite you guys to camps. If you receive interest after freshman or sophomore summer, you're probably on a Division I track. And then for Division II and III, the 19s were heavily recruited this past year. We still have some kids waiting on admissions before they can officially accept their offers. So they're recruited basically through the end of fall for the most part. This fall will be the last looks for a lot of schools. And then this fall and the end of last summer was the beginning of the Division II and III process for the 2020s. Most Division II and III schools will watch the 2020s this fall and summer. Offers can come as soon as fall. Most will come in the summertime or after that July 1st date, depending on what the academics they're looking for. And then the 2021s, you'll kind of end up in where the 2020s are, where most won't watch until the end of the summer. So don't expect to see many Division II and Division III schools on your sidelines this fall. It's not that they're not interested, it's just they're working a whole class ahead of you. And then I'm going to turn over to Danielle Bay.
I'd like to just emphasize those grids that she showed on Division I, Division II, and Division III and the time involved in playing lacrosse in college. I think there are mostly 21 families in the room. That's a real good thing to look at as a family together, to really talk about, how much time you really want to invest in lacrosse. And I think a lot of times we get starry-eyed about Division I and it's the be-all, end-all. And those charts are so realistic. I was so glad when I saw that they put those out there, because I remember when my girls were coming through, they would talk about 20 hours a week of practice time. So we're thinking 20 hours a week. Oh, I can handle 20 hours a week. I love lacrosse. Well, it's 40 hours a week. It's like a full-time job on top of school. So it's a lot. It's a big commitment. You have to love what you're doing, and you have to be an extremely driven, competitive young lady to love playing Division I lacrosse. And depending on how academic you are, you also have to be able to balance your academics and push yourself to what you want to achieve academically at the same time. So I don't mean to interrupt, but I just think that those two charts would be a good thing, especially at this age, with families to kind of review together and get a minute.
All right. So moving on from that, Connect Lax. You should all be in Connect Lax and have a profile in there by now. If not, you're definitely going to want to get into contact with Julia Braun or myself, and we can help you set that up. And also, Caitlin can help you with that as your recruiting coordinator. So up on the screen, that picture is of Gage. He's the CEO and co-founder of Connect Lax. He's who we deal with on a daily basis, so we do have a lot of help here. We know that this is a great platform. We love using it so far, so definitely use it as much as humanly possible. There's lots of stuff you can add in there, all the way from your SAT scores to transcripts to film, so definitely try to use that and fill it out as much as possible. So when it comes to building your list of colleges, there are so many platforms that you can use to try to do that and to find schools that match what you're looking for. So Connect Lax is one of them. We have a college matching service on there, and it's literally a button called College Matches that you can click on, and you can filter out some of your likes on there and get some lists of schools according to that. Inside Lacrosse and US Lacrosse website are big ones as well. So if you have not been on either of those, now would be a good time to just check them out and see what they have to offer. Your guidance department at your high school. Most of them will help you through the recruiting, well, not recruiting, but college process to begin with, trying to see what colleges you're interested in and help you along that process. So let them help you, let them make recommendations as well. T3 alumni, we have a great alumni base, as you saw Meg was up here before. Feel free to reach out to them. If you want to get in contact with anybody in particular, you'll see a humongous list of our college athletes that have committed to different places. If you look at that list online and you see one that's at a school that you're interested in, we'd be more than happy to get you in contact with them, so let us know. Use our T3 alumni. They're a wealth full of information. T3 recruiting coordinators like myself and Caitlin over here will help you. Our T3 website, like Caitlin said before, we do have an elite only page that can help you with some of your questions that you have too, and there's different resources in there that you can use just in the college recruiting process in general. You'll see in a little bit there's an email, like an email template that you can send to coaches. That's where you're going to find that, and that's also in Sports Board. So definitely use our elite only page. NCAA.org and NCAA Eligibility Center will also help you. The IWLCA, that was actually made for college coaches, but now students can go on to it, and there's tons of resources on there for you to use as well. And the College Bound Guide to Student Athletes. That's the actual college one for everybody, so definitely use that too. Factors to consider when looking at different colleges: your academic level of the school, the academic level of the school versus your academic level and your academic needs. So definitely factor that in. Your athletic level of the team, the athletic level of the team versus your athletic ability. And we'll be open with you through this process to letting you know whether you would be a good fit for the school or if you won't, and what you need to do to get to that point. So we'll be very open about that as well if you ask. Location and size of school and the distance from home. And that can change. So you might start off as a freshman, the 22s could be like, I want to go as far away as possible. And then once you get older, that usually changes. So it's okay for that to flip-flop back and forth. Cost of tuition, parents, that one's for you. So that's going to be an important one for you guys to watch. Potential majors. So if you have interests or general interest in anything, making sure that the schools have that major for you. If you're going in undecided, making sure that the schools have a plethora of different majors for you to choose from. And then any other factors that will play a role in your decision making. So I know one of the big ones is some of the girls like palm trees on their campus, and that may seem superficial, but to some people that is actually important. Or them having a football team, so that may come down to it too. So make sure you're looking at all those factors as you go through. So this was the list of our current alumni playing. So I know that you can't see it too well, but this is up on our website. So it gives you the Division I ones. So those are the current ones that are playing right now. And Division II and Division III in there. What was that? Oh, okay. Sorry. So that's everyone. Okay. Next one is current. So this is the current one that we have T3 alumni playing at. And you'll see Division I, II, and III in there as well.
All right, so for those of you guys that are in here right now, this chart at the top is actually something that a lot of students need to take note on. Your GPA alone dictates how many schools can recruit you. This number comes straight from the NCAA, straight from the College Board website. If you have a 4.0, 94% of the schools in the country, regardless of division, can recruit you. If you drop down to a 3.0, only 51% of the schools that offer lacrosse are able to actively recruit you. Yes, there are some schools that can help you out from an academic standpoint, but freshman grades matter. We have had kids get themselves into holes that try and dig themselves out, but if you start off now as a freshman or as a sophomore with a solid grade base, you'll help yourself out in the long run. The other thing that we always comes up is approaching the SAT and ACT. We want to make sure that you take the PSAT in the fall of your sophomore year if it's offered at your high school. If it's not, see if you can schedule it somewhere else. If you're pursuing the Division I track, and especially if you're an academic student, we want to make sure that we take an official test, meaning an official ACT or SAT as early as possible, usually around spring of sophomore year, and then keep retaking it just so that we have a solid score base before or on September 1st of your junior year, because we don't want academics being a reason, or not lack of score being a reason schools have to hold off on you and move to somebody else. For the Division II and III track athletes, we want to make sure that we have a baseline of school by the fall of your junior year, and then retake and improve. Most schools can super score the SAT and ACT, which means they can take the best parts of each test rather than, all right, I got a 1520, oh, that's a high score, a 1520 right off the bat. But let's say you got a 620 on one test in math, and then your next test you got a 680. They can take that highest score and the highest score from another test and piece together a total score to try and boost up your level. Not all schools can, but most can. Patriot Leagues now can super score. That was a big thing in the last few years because it used to have to be the original test. Some Ivies can, and then most, state schools do super score as well. And as we were talking about the Ivies and the Patriot Leagues, they go off something that's called the academic index. So we have a lot of kids in our program that happen to be super high academic achieving students. The schools that they're going after operate off of something that's called the AI. You'll hear the coaches talk about it. You'll hear us talk about it. It's no hard number that you have to reach. Like if you go online, you'll see some schools say you need a 3.7 GPA and a 1400 SAT. That's a little bit different for these schools because they're going to put your scores into a formula. So it takes into account what high school you go to and what classes you're taking. It takes into account your unweighted GPA, your SAT or ACT, and the strength of your high school schedule. And the coaches will do some math and then end up doing a little bit of magic on their end and come up with a score of a 176 to 240. And a lot of times they'll say like, oh, we need you at a 210. So they'll come back to you and say, to get you to the 210, we have to make sure that your SAT is at a certain level based on a number of different factors. So everyone always says, what scores do I need to get into these schools? We can't necessarily give you a definitive answer just because it depends on a few things, but we can give you a general range on what kids that have applied or gone through our program that need it as well. And the baseline varies from year to year. Each school goes through a different admissions process.
Alrighty, so now let's move on to some communication here. Let me see if that just zooms in. No, it doesn't. Okay. So contacting college coaches. This is what a general email from Connect Lax is going to look like when you send them. So you'll see in the blue bubble right up here, you can start typing in the name of the college. So up there is University of Denver. You don't want to start with university because how many of them are out there? You'll be typing forever. So you can start with Denver and it'll populate right in. So you can just click right on the school from there. And then you'll see the list of the college coaches that it's going to email. So you'll see the 2 Denver coaches there listed, so you can see who it's going to. And then if you did want to BCC us on it, just so Caitlin is your recruiting coordinator, but just so she knows that you're emailing, there's a line for that as well. So you can BCC us on that too. We love to know that you guys are emailing and getting these emails out, so go ahead and hit that. The more we get, the better. So don't think that you're pestering us at all. You'll see a subject line up here as well, so you can type your subject in, which is usually your name, T3 North, whatever team you are, or Central, what position you play, and your number, just so the coaches have that right in the tagline. And then, like I said before, we do have sample emails that you can use that are in Sports Board and also on our Elite Only page on the T3 website. So some pre-tournament information that you should include in these emails is your name, your team, jersey number, the position that you play, and your tournament and the schedule for your tournament. So don't just put them at the fall face-off this weekend. Also include what times your games are at and what fields they're on. You can even include who you're playing just to make it a little bit easier for them so they don't have to guess. You guys writing these down? I'll let you sit on this slide for a little bit.
With that being said, when you do write team, it's not just North 2020. You have to write T3 North 2020 and then your team color, black or blue. I've seen a couple things come through where people are just writing T3. It's helpful for us because we can edit that stuff, but anything that you fill out going forward should be the full team name.
Okay, so for Division One, they can express general interest in you through the directors of recruiting, so through us, prior to September 1st, and then they can reach out to you directly after September 1st. They usually ask us some questions about your athleticism, your work ethic, about your family, etc. They can contact athletes directly after September 1st of junior year. And the military academies, like we said before, can contact you directly on July 1st prior to your junior year. Division II schools can contact athletes directly on June 15th of their sophomore year, so that's that summer before junior year. Typically contacts the athletes directly. Sometimes they'll come to us first, sometimes they won't, so we may or may not have a heads up about that. And they may ask T3 for feedback about athletes during the recruiting process as well. So the feedback that's above, they can ask that as well, and they usually do after they've contacted you. Division III schools, they can contact athletes directly on any date that they're in high school. They typically contact the athletes directly, and they may ask us for feedback again. Okay.
All right, so we talked about it a little bit before about not expecting everyone to get a full scholarship. So there's 115 women's lacrosse teams. That actually number should be 117 now. 2 Division IIs decided to go Division I. A fully funded Division I lacrosse program, women's lacrosse program, is 12 scholarships for the entire team. So coaches have the ability to divvy that number up based on any number of criteria. They could assign 3 or 4 scholarships per class and then divvy them up. They could give an equal number of scholarship dollars per student, or they could go after their high-level performing students with a lot of dollars and then, possibly extend a spot for other kids and not necessarily any athletic money. Not all programs, hold on a second. Not all programs are fully funded, so there are a lot of schools that we happen to have kids attend that might only have 3 scholarships for their entire program. And it could be super high level performing schools, like in the Big East, or they could be any schools. It just depends on how the athletic department goes about it. Ivy League schools do not offer any athletic scholarship at all. The Ivies typically offer academic aid or academic grants based on your particular family's financial profile. Division II, there's 111 schools. A fully funded Division II school is 9.9 scholarships per roster. So same thing, that's divided amongst all the kids on the team. It could be 20 kids, it could be 18 kids. It's seen fit how the coaches like to divide that number up. And then Division III, there's 285 Division III lacrosse programs. They don't offer any athletic scholarship, but they are the most generous with finding grants at the programs. It could be academic, it could be athletic, it could be community service. Coaches are the best at finding the grants and money at their schools. So if you are going to go down the Division III route, you might want to ask the coach, what are some things that your students apply for to try and get the most money out of their schools. And then what are the odds? These numbers are actually updated probably about 3 weeks ago. The average athletic scholarship across all Division I programs is $12,884. So that's all teams, all program funding amounts, just totaled and divided up. There's 3,471 women that compete on Division I schools. That's approximately 860 kids per class. So keep that in mind when we talked about what we're going to look at recruiting wise, because there's only so many spots on these teams. And then 3.7% of high school athletes go on to play Division I lacrosse. And then each team tends to look for 6 to 8 kids per class. Some teams look for 10. Some teams look for 4. And then the average roster size is 30. And then financial aid for, obviously, college cost is extremely expensive around these times. So Connect Lax is actually a pretty good resource for you guys to look at. If this is also the University of Denver, if you look at their financial breakdowns, this is based on household income. So if your household income is $49,000 to $75,000, you're probably only going to end up having to pay $24,000 for tuition at the University of Denver, and then you'll see on the next slide how that money's made up. If your household income is $110,000, then you'll obviously have to pay, full tuition. And then on the bottom of this, there's a breakdown. So tuition is $46,422. Books and supplies cost that much. Dorm life is the next one. And then at the very bottom, you'll get the sticker price, and that's what you can expect to pay for 1 year at the University of Denver. On the next slide, you'll see that 85% of the students that attend that school end up with a grant or scholarship, and that's the average amount. The average amount is this $26,000 amount. So don't be shocked when you see something that says $62,000. It's worth doing a little bit more investigating to see where the money comes from to try and help you guys ease the burden of college tuition. And then also, this also doesn't take into account any athletic money awarded, but this is a good thing to look at as a family and start to look at, what works with your family's individual financial needs. If you guys have questions on an individual basis, please feel free to reach out. We'll be glad to help you guys through it, because you won't be the first and certainly won't be the last that do get a little bit shocked at some of the cost of tuition, and we'll be glad to help you guys through it or point you in the right direction. Yep.
I think that don't underestimate the value of Connect Labs in this process. We've been really impressed, and I know the recruiting coordinators have dived into it a lot more than I have, but the tools in there to investigate colleges and this financial piece are really, really beneficial. Like, you get a real accurate snapshot of how much it's going to cost for you to go to certain schools quickly, all in one place. You can build your lists all in one place. The amount of detail that they have in Connect Labs to build your school's list is better than probably using all those other sources that we gave you, because they did such a great job building up the software in that area. So I personally highly recommend digging through Connect Labs first, and then use your other resources too, but you might find it does a lot more for you than you might have realized. I think you might have had a question too. Maybe we could go ahead.
The one question was answered.
Okay.
And I don't know if this is the right time to ask this question, but in terms of the colleges and the clinics they offer, I just wanted to know if you recommended that, and if so, when.
The question is, when do we recommend college camps and clinics? We have kids in 2022s that are gung-ho and raring to go, that are getting out there, and then we also have kids that are starting a little bit later. It depends on what you're looking for. It doesn't hurt to start to go out and see campuses, get exposed to college camps and clinics. Obviously they come with an expense, so I would make sure that we set a family budget. And as a 2022 or a 2021, go out and see the schools, go out and get in front of them, see what the level of competition is. It can't hurt the process. If you start too late, meaning if you're a 2020 and want to start the Division I process now, you're kind of at the end of the road. But as a 2020, starting the Division I process now, a 2021 starting Division I process now, and you're looking for camps and clinics, I'd go attend anything that fits within your family budget, anything that fits your academic or academic needs, and everything that goes off on that checkbox.
Yeah, it's down to time and resources. You have to decide, prioritize it. If you get to the point where you help prioritizing, then you lean on the recruiting coordinator to help you prioritize. You have this list of all these camps and clinics you want to go to, well, based off my school list, what would you recommend? Where should we spend our time? Lean on us to help you guide where to spend your time and resources wisely, so you're not spinning the wheels in directions that aren't likely to produce much progress for you.
And then after we go to all these camps and clinics and have these conversations with these coaches, it ultimately leads down to the road to the offer. Like we mentioned before, an offer can be anything from a spot on the roster, support through admissions, or any athletic aid, academic aid, or any combination of the two. It could be a combination of all three. It could be just one of the above. It's dependent on the individual. Offers generally are not made until the athlete has gotten to campus. With some of our higher level 2020s, coaches were more willing to extend offers prior to getting kids on campus after doing their research through us and their vetting process through us, but that's very few and far between, because not only are they investigating you, you're also investigating them, their team, their school, and anything that goes into your checkbox of what am I looking for in a school, making sure that everything is okay for you as well as it is for them. When anything comes down to finances, the parents should always be involved, but for the most part, the process should be driven by the student. It shouldn't be you reaching out to the coaches. It should be the kid having conversations with the coaches. You guys should be in the background and on speakerphone, but everything should be driven by them, and that's what the coaches are looking for. Offers can come as early as September 1st of junior year, or as late as this time as a senior. So it really depends on where you're going and what you're looking for. My favorite quote is actually by Karen Brower, the Penn coach. It's coaches are not committing to how good you is not good is not yeah. Coaches are not committing to how good you are now. They're committing to your potential. So when a coach extends an offer to you or says, we'd love to have you on our team, that doesn't mean that they like you as an athlete right now. Yes, they obviously do, but they're also expecting you to put the work in. Once you commit, you basically have to work twice as hard to make sure that you're staying in shape, you're meeting their expectations, you're making sure that you fit the academics, that the academic criteria that they're talking about. Yes, you do know where you're going to school, but it's only a verbal commitment. It is seen as binding by the coaches. You've probably seen in the papers, like some of those high boys or even some of the higher level girls maybe switching their commitments. It's not a binding agreement on the women's side, but it is a quote unquote gentleman's agreement. Like once you verbally commit, that's 99.9% of the time where you'll end up going. And then resources. Basically, where do we go for help? It could be your recruiting coordinators, myself, Danielle, Kelly, if you guys are from the shore, the player development personnel, the T3 directors, your coaches. And then where do I have resources is your locker. How many of you guys have actually opened your locker and looked through it? So a couple of you. There's a ton of information in there that will help you guys through the process. The other thing is, have any of you looked through the elite only pages? They're at the bottom of every email that I send, so make sure that you guys check it out. Not only is it information for athletes, it's videos, it's articles, it's sample emails, it's college camps and clinics. I mean, there's a ton of information that we put in there for you guys. Just make sure you check it out eventually. Connect Lax, and then also our alumni. Yes. And then questions. Does anybody have any questions? We went over a lot.
Usually I always say if you're thinking it, I bet you another parent in here is. So don't be shy in asking some questions if you think it's personal. It usually isn't.
You had mentioned that the Ivies do not offer athletic scholarships. Now, do they get creative like the D3 schools and trying to find it, maybe something under a merit scholarship?
Yes and no. There might be merit scholarships, but it is very few and far between sometimes. A lot of it is dependent on your family's individual financial needs. But it is worth asking. At those higher academic schools, it's really tough to get athletic academic scholarships, you have to be like the very cream of the top. And it's, like I said, it's tough.
So basically, it's really just a door to get into the Ivy League with no financial gain. It's sort of like a way of getting that little extra edge you need.
Yeah, unless you're it's depending on your family's household income and demonstrated need. And we actually tell people to fill out the Ivy League's version of FAFSA, and you'll get a good estimate of what you're looking at that way. Ms. Klein.
Just a quick question about the emails, because I know the girls are supposed to email the coaches before tournaments. How much is too much? Like, do you do every single tournament, or can you group them by weekend? Like, because there's a lot of, it's hard to be creative. I know my daughters found it hard to be like, hey, it's me again, because they never answer you. So you keep sending them kind of the same email. Like, do you break it up by tournament, break it up?
So on this one, it is broken down into Fall Face-Off and Lax to the Cure in one email because those are on one weekend. They're back-to-back with Saturday and Sunday. If it's in the summertime, it should be every individual tournament because there'll be one on each weekend. It just helps to keep things organized. If you're coming to Fall Face-Off, you're most likely going to Lax to the Cure, and if you're going to Lax to the Cure, you're most likely going to Fall Face-Off. So basically the populations switch.
So when you go to these, our daughter went to the Division 3 thing at ISPs again, and you have to sign up through whatever service they were using, and then, undoubtedly there's 5 people that are interested in you, and then you sign up for them. How does that crossover work when you guys are doing Connect Class, which is preferred, I guess, and you have these other sports recruits and all this other stuff that they're creating these videos for you and they're communicating with coaches directly as well. Is that, it's all resource based, I'm sure. Is that wise to do, or is it?
I would keep it in one location. A lot of times Division 3 schools, which the D3 showcase was geared towards, might email a personal email account that you roster and waiver with. Yeah. So sometimes it might come to a parent email address because that's probably what you used. Yeah. You can continue the conversation in there. We just ask that you guys CC us. That way we can see what's going on. Anything in Connect Lax that gets sent out, we can see. Everyone can see on the background, so we can kind of keep tabs. Just keep whoever you're communicating with in the loop. As for video, you can download that film off of Sports Recruits and upload it into Connect Lax. We used to use Sports Recruits, to be completely honest. We just weighed the pros and cons, and I hope you guys realized. Yeah, no, I know. We did use it, and it was super helpful because everything just got plopped right in there, but we found the benefits for this one to be more suited towards what our families needed.
It's really helpful to keep the information consolidated in one place so that when you're working with a recruiting coordinator, everything's there.
Right.
There's no need to have 2 recruiting software companies going at the same time. There's absolutely no need. So none of you should be paying for another recruiting company service because Connect Lax is included in your D3 fees. So there's no need to pay for something else. But if another recruiting company is running something and does film for you, absolutely get the film, put it on your Connect Lax profile. Any contacts that come through that, absolutely take advantage of it. But use Connect Lax as your hub of where you're running everything out of. It would be a lot for your daughter and the family to manage too, to be trying to be on 2 pieces of software. Plus, it's just not necessarily. It's a duplication of the same thing.
It's not just for sport recruits, but there's a couple other ones.
Yeah, it's like Captain U and.
Oh, 5 coaches are interested in you.
Yeah.
You have to sign up and find out who they are.
Yeah, don't fall for that. That's a marketing trick because I actually have fake accounts in some of the other ones just to see what gets sent out. And I get, so and so saw you play this weekend. Meanwhile, I'm 30 years old and haven't stepped foot on a field, and so some of it is the marketing gimmick, some of it is true. So it is worth investigating and reaching out to anybody that you're interested in.
There was one that we'd already been members of, and I was going to communicate directly about someone that was interested in kind of sporadic.
Yeah.
That's somewhat surprising. So.
Mrs. Kennard.
So, For my daughter, she started out on Sports Recruit with P3 and went to Connect Lax, and I know she was already sent out some letters, so she had to let them know that she changed the recruiting program. And so, did you, as an organization, reach out to schools that maybe you have, to let them know that all of our T3 girls are moving from Sports Recruit to Connect Lax?
Yeah, we did. And then before we even made the switch, we did ask their feedback as well, which they preferred, and almost all of them said Connect Lax. As the 2021s and younger, you guys are lucky. It was the 2020s and older that had a little bit more of a difficult process. 2021s, it was great that they were emailing, but they didn't really have any true communication back except for like a few and far between with Division 3s. It was more outward email sent. So, this is the time that really counts. So everything going forward should be through Connect Lax, or should be through, if you get a personal email to a personal email, you can respond directly to that one. But
how do you know what caliber player you really are and what type of school
you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I can take that one. So that comes down to you going to different showcases, camps, and clinics, and you can kind of get a gauge by that. We're also very truthful to you. If you ask that question, if we're on recruiting calls with you, and a girl says she wants to go Division I, we'll honestly tell you, right now you're not at that spot. If you continue to work harder, you could be there, but right now you're not. So we'll be truthful throughout the process as well about that. But really just matching yourself up, even at tournaments, I suggest to my girls that they go and watch other games of higher caliber teams to see where they need to be if they want to go Division I. Because some of the recruiting books will tell you right in there if they're committed or not, so we'll know if the teams are. So it's interesting to see that and to match yourself up and try to compare, but we'll be truthful throughout that process too.
Yeah, the best thing that you guys could do is go and watch the 2020s. They'll be at the same tournaments as the 2021s, and we can give you an honest idea of where these guys are going, and you obviously be able to understand, on social media where they're going as well. But it's an honest, it's an honest conversation between the recruiting coordinator, the player development person that are going to get to know you guys as a family, also your daughters, and also based on feedback from previous years and what coaches are looking for going forwards.
That's what I was going to say, that kind of the validation comes through when we get feedback from college coaches. So if we've gone through this whole year with a 2020 and it's come to September 1st and she hasn't gotten any feedback from Division I, and we've been telling her all along, we think you're a Division III athlete, but go ahead and go after these Division I schools that are of interest to you, of course, set your goals here. We go through this whole season of time and no interest in Division I, then we're going back after September 1st and validating what we thought is true. You're really on a Division III track. You're an excellent player for these schools. This is where we think you should focus. So it's not just what T3 thinks, it's also what we're hearing from the college coaches. And it works the reverse way sometimes too, that maybe we don't think a player is at a certain level, and several college coaches are saying, wow, the athleticism of this kid is off the chart. She's definitely someone we're interested in. And it can work the other way too. So it's definitely working with the recruiting coordinators that have taken many kids through the process, and then validating that with feedback that you're getting from college coaches in the process too, and then we kind of get an idea of where it's all going to shake out at the end of the day. But it is tough, it's not black and white. We can't just pick it, it's a fluid process too.
Yeah,
If one day, the girls, you're all changing so much right now, the 21s and 22s, all of a sudden they take off and they do amazing things in just 3 months' time. You're like, wow, she just turned a huge corner, and she could be competing for a Division I team now for sure. And 3 months ago, we might have been like, not sure if she's going to make that next jump or not. So it is a fluid process. That's a great word.
Yeah, even Meg said it too when she started, the list is going to constantly change. So the first time you build a list, you can set the net wide, right? And then we're going to go through the process, see what feedback we're getting from coaches, and you're going to go Connect Lax, and that list is going to adjust. So the point that Meg brought up, like the list she started with however many colleges, by the end it was a completely different list, and that's very normal. Like that is typically how it works. It's a fluid process. We're learning as we go through it. You know, validation from college coaches and working with the T3 staff as well will help guide you in what track you want to be on.
The other thing is you could have validation from the college coaches and also want something different out of your process. Like we have plenty of kids that get Division I interest that choose to go Division III because of what they want out of their experience, whether it be the academic level, whether it be the ability to go abroad, whether it be the ability to obviously like pre-med as a major. It's really all about what you want. You know, you don't have to accept a Division I offer. It comes to you. It's truthfully an individual basis.
If you're a senior and you're not committed anywhere, do you recommend a walk-on tryout?
If you're a senior and not committed anywhere, and recommend a walk-on tryout. We have had kids go through that process. It's up to you. If it's a school that you really want to go to and it's the place that you have your heart set on, we have had kids go through a walk-on process, been both successful and also unsuccessful. If it's like one of those schools like UNC and it's the #1 school in the country, you know, obviously they're only going to take the very best of the best, but they might need players for their club team or they might need players for their practice squad. So it doesn't hurt to reach out if it is a place that you get accepted to and if it's a place that you have your heart set on. It's two different conversations, I guess.
Yeah, and not all schools will allow a walk-on situation too, so you may want to ask if you're not getting an answer and you're 2019 and need help with that answer, you can rely on recruiting a coordinator or myself as a director to get an answer for you. Do you allow walk-ons? Would you consider a walk-on? Here's the story of this player. Here's why you should give her a chance to come to practice and see if she's a fit for your team. Some schools just take more and more players on their roster and they don't really manage the size of their teams, where others are very strict and they like that 30 player mark or less, and they don't really want to even look at a walk-on because they've already promised these kids they want to work with these kids, and that's their outlook on things. That's one thing that we didn't touch on. When you're looking at schools, if I was a player and parent today, I would take a closer look at that roster size, because some of these schools are getting crazy with the sizes of the rosters. And we all love to play the game. You don't want to go to school and sit on the bench for 3 years and then hope senior year you're going to get time. And I think some of the Division I programs in particular are getting out of control with the size of the rosters and not giving enough kids an opportunity to get out there and play. Yes, you contribute to your team in practice. Yes, you're part of the experience, and it's an awesome experience, but we all love to play the game and compete on the field in actual competitions too. So I would add that it's just my opinion, but it would be important to me as a former player and parent of two Division I athletes to look at the roster sizes.
Will the games at the Fall Face-Off and Latch the Cure be filmed?
Latch to the Cure, we know for a fact will be filmed. Fall Face-Off, yeah. Fall Face-Off, we're filming all fields, all games. Latch for the Cure, I believe, is only filming the fields that the games get purchased for, whether it be yourself purchasing the film, your team purchasing the film, or an opponent purchasing it. Anything that we run, there's always the opportunity to purchase it afterwards. Any other tournament, we can't promise that all of your games will be filmed, just depending on what the filming schedule is.
Yeah, most events will offer some type of filming. We are doing it through Connect Labs at the Fall Face-Off. I'm sure Latch for the Cure is doing it as well, so just check the event website and you'll have that info on there.
Can you just talk a little bit more about the process through Connect Lax in terms of profile setup? We've maybe identified our target list of schools right now. We're early, we're 2022. At what point will we know, like we can see people that are viewing the profile, when might we know if the schools we've selected are interested, will come to you and then you'll come to us? At what point does all that get divulged, or how do we know who's looking or interested?
As of 2022, it's still really, really, really early in the process. Most Division I schools are wrapping up their 2020 class and beginning the 2021 process. So you might see a couple of them on the sidelines this fall on the on that second day of the tournament. But for the most part, they'll be digging deep into the 20s and 2021s. By the end of the summer, college coaches need to change of scenery, so then they'll start to switch to the 2022s just so they're not watching the same pool of kids anymore. That's when they can start to identify like that top pool of kids. But for the most part, 22s won't get watched until next fall, and that's when we would divulge any information that we hear back. If there's a school in particular that you're interested in, we can walk you through the experience of the classes above you, what they're typically looking for. That can go for anybody. But 22s, you guys, this is the time to learn, time to immerse yourself in the whole process. You can get your toes wet, as opposed to when Meg was a freshman. It was like, we have to get to this camp or we possibly will lose out on this opportunity.
Yeah,
Right.
I started showcases in 8th grade. It got ridiculous. I was visiting Princeton and all these schools, and I had no chance going to them. But I still went anyway in order to get notices in 8th grade, and I had no idea I wanted to even go to college at that time.
Yeah. Anytime we hear feedback from a coach, we'll pass it along to the families. And then as the process progresses and September approaches of prior to that junior year, we did a lot of digging in June, July, and August, trying to get you guys the information that you were looking for. Some coaches were willing to give it up. Some coaches were like, it's a month away. We're going to wait. We don't want anything misconstrued across the lack of communication barrier. But anything that we hear, we'll always pass along to you guys.
The new rules have slowed down the process a lot. Like Meg said, before that new rule legislation passed, she was going to stuff as 8th graders. So as a freshman, like Caitlin said, it's just getting used to Connect Lax, building your list, doing research, learning about what you think you'd want, keeping the net wide, and then, the feedback really wouldn't come until the next year. But for you guys as 22s, it's just doing your homework, getting involved, setting yourself up to be prepared.
A big thing also is you guys are high schoolers. You don't need to rush into this process. Really take your time with it. Make your list over a long period. Yes, when it gets closer to September 1st, junior year, start thinking about it more. But as freshmen and sophomores, don't worry about it too much. Live your high school lives and really focus on your grades. That's really important.
I was going to say something, I forgot what it was.
Must have turned it on.
How does being a blue versus black player affect the college?
You don't have black names.
I don't.
It depends on the player. Right now, I could speak directly for our 2020s. We have kids on both teams with Division I interest. We have kids on both teams with Division III interest. It depends on what you're looking for in your school. For the most part, players on the blue team won't necessarily be the recruits the top 30 or top 40 teams go after. They might be the lower level Division Is. Or the higher level Division IIIs. It's really dependent on the individual, it's dependent on the position, and it's dependent on the year as well. But our 18s happened to be 100% committed on the black team. We actually shifted kids off of blue once they committed to benefit that team. That way, coaches weren't coming to watch one kid. Everybody on the black team was committed, and whether it be, a top 10 program or that mid-major school. That way, we funneled all the coaches to the blue team because it was the kids that needed to be seen. And that's been the plan with the 19s and then possibly the plan with the 20s as they progress. Once you commit, it's your option to go up to the black team, or we most likely will kind of give you that bump to go up to the black team. That way, there's not one kid on that team or two kids on that team that are waiting to be seen. It gives you the better odds to be seen on the blue team.
The coaches want to go and watch the players that are uncommitted, right? So if our 2020 black team is mostly committed and they're playing against another team that's mostly committed, you can see why the coach traffic would start to drift away from those games, because they want to go where they can see the most number of kids that are interested in their school that could come play for their school. So it's a little bit of a myth that all the coaches go and just watch the black team. It depends on timing.
I would say that more of the black team players end up playing Division One, possibly, but we most definitely every year have had Division One players recruited off of both the black and blue teams. And depending on the pace of the decisions of the kids in the process, we have split the teams committed and uncommitted in the past. And one more point about the split.
I don't know, but I was gonna add about, it's also who's emailing and contacting the coaches. So don't get so caught up in what team you're on. It's more like, what are my goals in this? What's gonna fit me? And then the coaches will come watch if you're emailing them and telling them, you know, where you're playing.
I know what the other point was. It was also to, like, the team that you play on, you want to play an environment that makes you shine, that makes you play at your top level, and that makes you stand out to the colleges that you're trying to attract. So we put a lot of thought into how we put the teams together to put you in a position to develop as a player, to contribute to your team, and to also put your best foot forward in front of college coaches. The older you get, when we're getting to the point where you're making decisions about recruiting, is the decision process here at this time. So that's a big weight into how we make the team makeup, and something we can talk to each one of you about individually to be sure we're doing the best by you to help you fulfill your college dream.
Yeah, the other thing is there's no difference in the amount of support and the amount of resources that you have, black versus blue. Right now, actually, I have 47 unmissed text messages from both black and blue 2020s. So, you know, they all have our cell phones, and they'll call at any hour of the night. They'll always email. You know, we'll always get back to you guys within a timely manner. But, you know, everyone has the same resources. It's not like, oh, we only work with the black teams. No, we're going to work with every kid in the program individually, get a chance to know you, get a chance to know your families, and then get a chance to know you guys basically in and out.
And the timing of when she gets involved with the families might be a little different, though, because it's with the Division I offers coming to maybe the top couple of kids on the black team right away on September 1st. Yeah, she was spending more time with those kids at that point in time because that's when they needed her. Division III kids on the 2020 team are going to need her after July 1st, where she's going to be in the middle of it with the 2020 still after July 1st that are looking at those NESCACs. So it's all about timing of what you need when, not who you are and what level of play you want to play at.
How many girls are on the roster for 2020, both black and blue?
20. I think 20 with 2 goalies each, or 20 on the black with 2 goalies, and then 18 on the blue with 1 goalie. You know, it's the same. It's going to be the same roster size. It's not like we're going to pack kids on a team just to pack kids on a team. It's, you know, everyone's going to get playing time. Everyone's going to get seen. Hard work will equate in a little bit more playing time for some of these teams at this point, though, too.
A question about the highlight reels. We're on ConnectLax.
Yep.
Skylar created a profile. She did all of that. But we don't have any highlight reels or anything yet.
We're just going to get one now.
A bug, and it's just like squirming.
Okay, that's gross.
Let's give it murder.
I'm just gonna pick it up and kill it. Thank you.
Yeah, she does that in our house.
That's
We don't kill the bugs in our house, we get Skylar.
Yeah.
Neither around our house.
My question is, we don't have any video yet. So how important is that? And when do we start? I mean, I'm not going to start doing that now, but I mean.
And what can you use to create them? Because like I have high school like film that I could use.
You can start to basically start to compile it from this past high school season, basically through the fall. You get 1 free highlight reel in ConnectLax, meaning they'll splice it together for you if you're not so tech savvy. But if you have an Apple like Final Cut Pro or iMovie, and then there's a Windows version as well. I can't remember what it's called right now, but a lot of kids create their own. You don't have to have the fancy effects where you have the arrow and the flames coming out of certain things. Like I've literally seen it all. You know, I'm not kidding. I've seen flames. As long as it's like between 2 and 3 minutes, it's showing the very best of what you can do, especially at the beginning. It shouldn't just be clips of you playing. It should be showing, it's literally a highlight film, so it's showing the best of your ability. And if you have questions, you can always send them to us. Some a 2020 just sent me her film, I was not a little harsh, but I was like, all right, this is 4 minutes of you just playing defense. Let's get rid of a lot of these. That way the whole point of them is to draw coaches in. We want to highlight you, not just put film out to put film out.
But going into the tournaments coming up in the 2 weekends, if we don't have any up yet, is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine as a 21.
Emails, obviously, before these.
Yep. You guys are 21s. It's okay. Like, yeah, you're not meant to have 1,000 highlight films right now. The 2020s have compiled more. Yeah. You could keep uploading film. Coaches will watch them all. They'll watch you progress as a player. That's actually a pretty good thing to keep a couple of them up. 2020s that migrated their accounts over, we told them to keep everything from summer before sophomore year all the way through, but like get rid of freshman year stuff just because they were basically in 8th grade at that point. But yeah, 2, 3, you could have 17 if you want, but I would just stick with 2 or 3 at that point.
Yeah.
I just have one follow-up question.
Okay.
You had said you're filming some of the tournaments. I imagine it's the 2 that are at Diamond Nation that are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I sound like an idiot, but you're filming the whole game. Do we still purchase it, or is that just shows up on our site somewhere?
You do still have to purchase it. The benefit of us filming all the fields at all times is that, let's say, after an event that you choose not to purchase film, you can go back and be like, oh my God, she played amazing in this tournament. It's guaranteed that those games are filmed. At another event that we can't speak to what's being filmed, it might just be games that people have purchased. You might not get all of your games. It might be 1 or 2 that like an opponent or a teammate filmed. So if you're thinking about going into it, your team VP might be able to organize a team price. Our tournaments, we're able to offer you guys a steep discount just because of our connection with ConnectLax. So I'm sure Kat will be sending out information about that soon.
Yeah, we negotiate costs down for you guys. So you'll get an email from us with the discounted rate for T3 families for our fall events. We did it last November at Fall Face-Off. We did it for Top Flight too. I don't know, you guys, should have gotten that email. We'll do the same thing for our 2 fall events. So.
And then you can take that film and ConnectLax will make a free highlight for you. So the hope is at least you'll have a little something after the fall to put on your ConnectLax recruits to get you going through, and then hopefully maybe you can get some film from your high school season, and then again into the summer, and keep it rolling forward that way. It's fine.
From a coach's perspective, does it make a difference if it's high school film or tournament film? Because like our high school doesn't film at all.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make a difference. It's just as long as they can see what you're like as a true player. I do know some high schools, not necessarily in New Jersey, that the lacrosse booster club or the parent booster club had organized a filmer to do their film of their games just because there were a lot of kids that wanted to play college lacrosse. But that's something that you guys can take up with your, with the high school. No. It's just an extra. It's a benefit that, you might have a full half, and Kelsey specifically might play amazing in a full half against a well-known high school team, and that's something that we can send along. Like we just did that last week with a 2020. So there is benefits to it, but it's not the end-all be-all if you don't have high school film.
Do college coaches look at high school stats, or do they look at stats at all?
Not necessarily. As defenders, it's tough to get stats. Specifically, that the family asking a question is a defender. You're not going to have goals. You're not going to have assists. They'll look, but they won't take it into consideration, if that makes any sense. They want to see you play. It's not about who scores the most amount of goals. It's not about who has the most assists. Yes, they are going to look that you do put the ball in the back of the net if you are an attacker. They're also going to look that you understand the game, that you understand, when do I take the ball to the goal, or when do I pass it off to a teammate, or on defense, am I maintaining position, or am I going to go chase a check, or, any combination of the two. They might look for, or you're just going to sit back on defense and wait for people to come to you. There's definitely a different combination of everything, but anything else?
No, I think with that, there's a wide variation in levels of play of high schools around the state of New Jersey, and there's some schools out there where there's 1 or 2 superstars on the team that rack up all the points and all the stats for the team, and really neither of those 2 girls could ever play in many of the Division I schools, but they're leading the, if you look at the stats, you're like, oh my gosh, this kid must be amazing. So it can be stats can be very misleading, and the college coaches know that because they get to know the stronger high schools in the area, and they know the weaker high schools in the area, but they also know there's great players on weaker high schools. They're just not going to go by stats alone. And that comes back to that film question of getting high school film. It's really the opponent. Like if the one team's crushing the other team, and you're not really showing much if you're just blowing by, you know, people on the field, and it's not really a challenging environment. It's not showing you much on the film if that's a high school game that you had. That can happen with a club game too. So, you know, it's just the level of competition, and the college coaches are pretty sharp in this area, and they won't go by stats alone. They'll take a look at who's putting up the points in different categories. And yes, it's great to be racking up cause turnovers and ground balls and draw controls and goals and assists. It's important, but it's definitely not the be-all, end-all, because there's a lot of things that go into stats.
One thing that does get overlooked a lot in recruiting is body language. If you have a kid that makes a mistake or causes a foul or misses the goal and then just kind of sulks, that's something that does get taken into consideration. So we want to make sure that if you have a mistake, you have to fight 10 times harder to get that ball back, because that does show the type of player that you are and the type of teammate that you are. Like if your teammate scores, you don't want to be like throwing up confetti, but you should definitely go congratulate them because it is a team sport, because you would want them to do the exact same thing. Or if your defender or a goalie makes a great play, once the ball's cleared out, like you guys can congratulate them as well. You know, things should definitely be celebrated, but they don't have to be, you know, like literally confetti cannons going off.
Yeah.
Is there one position that's recruited sooner than another position?
A really good goalie, like literally top of the class, and are going to go quick. And then midfielders.
Yep.
Because midfielders can be versatile. You might play midfield in high school. Coaches might be able to see you in one end or the other. That doesn't mean that attackers and defenders don't get recruited. It's just those are the 2 positions that tend to commit quicker. Like actually,
If you're an attacker or defender, don't go running to your club coach and say, I want to play midfield, because it doesn't mean that you're going to get recruited any sooner as a midfielder. If your strength is attack, you should be playing attack, because you're going to show better as an attacker.
Yes.
If your strength is defense, you should be playing defense. Just putting you in the midfield is not going to make you get recruited faster. You're competing against, you have to be the best at your position, wherever it may be. And they may be recruiting midfielders first because they see that midfielder as the best defender on the field, and they picked that player because of her defense, and she outperformed every defender and every midfielder to be picked as maybe the best defender, but she happened to be playing midfield. So you really just have to be the best at the position that you play.
yeah, it's actually our first 2020 North commit was an attacker, and our second 2020 North commit was a defender. So they just happened to be really good at their position, and both enjoy those schools that they eventually decided on.
Coaches have to fill their roster as well, right? So they need attackers, defenders, and middies. So a lot of it can depend on what they need specifically for that class and what they already have on their team. So
Also, be aware, coaches, they'll watch you and they'll see you in your certain position, and they may really like you as a player, but once you go there, they may want you to change position. Like, I'm a defender right now in high school, and my college coach told me, like, I'm starting midi when I get there. Like, I gotta get ready to run. So, like, be prepared, your position can change. Like, I knew one girl that actually is going to Duquesne now. She started off as a defender, and now she's an attacker. Like, you can completely switch positions. So
that's goalies. You guys are
yeah.
you guys are solid. You don't need to worry about that.
Yeah. There's one other. Danielle, I think you mentioned sports board. What is that?
Sports board is what your locker's in. So that's your locker. Yep. So I confuse those all the time. You guys, I know it as sports boards. You guys know it as your locker. Yep.
Do you have any examples of what you would consider a good film?
I do.
Like a highlight reel? Yeah.
Highlight reels of maybe some past players that are playing?
Yeah.
Let me ask some of the 2020s if I can pass on their films, because we do have some kids that have. Yeah, Meg's is good too. That's a good point. I didn't think about that, but
We can see if we can put it into maybe a few different ones in sports board even.
yeah.
In their locker. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll ask a couple that are committed or very, very close, and then pass those along to you guys.
That's awesome, thanks.
Just going back to the film again, when I was on the Connect Labs webinar, the representative said that college coaches don't really want to see high school film unless you're at a top high school.
I don't remember that part, but they don't want to see, like, sometimes in high school you'll play skewed competition. That's kind of what he was getting at. If you're a very strong high school in a weak area, that's not necessarily what they want to see. That's why they want to see club film, because the directors and the coaches weight the teams appropriately. So you're going to be playing evenly matched teams basically 98% of the time. There might be like one or two outliers. But if you go to a strong high school and it's an evenly matched game and it's a great game, that is something that we should look at. But if it's, you know, Haley specifically is a defender and she's standing there on the other end, oh shoot, not doing anything, then that's not going to help her. But if she's an attacker scoring 12 goals against, you know, a freshman level team, that's not necessarily something they want to see either.
And then what about in high school if you play a different position than you do in your club?
We have kids that do that now. It's like, you know, like Meg said, when she's going to Duquesne, she's going to play a different position than what she plays in high school and in club. Same thing happens in high school. It depends on the needs of your school and what your child's strengths are.
Yeah, I'm talking about like putting on film. You put both positions on.
You can.
Yeah.
Or do you?
You can put both up. Yep, I put both up. They like to see that you can play multiple positions, that like you can adapt to different places on the field. So.
Like our goalie's playing attack.
Use your recruiting coordinators too to help with film. I know they spend a lot of time going through film with families and making sure it's, you know, good, or helping guide families on what to put. So.
Yeah. We'll look through them for you. We'll help you if you need help breaking them down. But we will look through them for you, definitely. Let you know if you should add in, take out, whatever it may be. Anything else, guys?
Nope.
Are you gonna post these slides?
Yeah.
Because my notes aren't as good as those slides.
Yep, we'll put them up. And then our friend Chuck back there has filmed it as well. So everything is going to be filmed. We'll put it up online like the next probably 3 weeks.
Okay. Thank you guys for coming.